Good morning, good afternoon, and good night, depending on where you are on this beautiful planet. I'm Tanner Burke, and you are watching the Pick Six here on Brew Sports, alongside my colleague, James Stewart. James, good morning.
Those are very enthusiastic open you got there.
It's the best Tuesday out of all the Tuesdays that there have ever been. So, yes.
Or ever will be.
Or ever will be. How are you
Until
today?
next week.
How are you today?
I'm good, man. I'm good. How are you?
I'm great. I'm great.
I see that.
I'm leaving for Florida tomorrow. I'm just like, let's get it over with. Get it out of here. I don't care. Yes, today we start our wonderful off-season breakdown.
Yes.
And this week we are focusing on the NFC East, one of the more competitive divisions in the NFL. Very excited to talk about it. A couple great teams, of course, and the Cowboys, the Giants, and, of course, the Eagles. And we're still trying to figure out what the H is going on in Washington, but that's why we're here to talk about it today. And, of course, at the end of the show, we will talk about, or we will break down, rather, who we think will ultimately come out on top of the NFC East. First off, let's cover some of the relative news going around the NFL. Tony Romo, relative to the NFC East, unfortunately did not make the U.S. Open. For those of you that have not heard, Tony Romo decided, of course, to retire and go into broadcasting, then was like, hold on, I'm going to go try professional golf real quick. And he just missed the cut, though. He was 3 over, which is pretty good for an above-average golfer.
I don't think that story's going to go to rest. We've heard basically his entire career, he's a good golfer.
The whole
time. Literally. Every time he's injured, is he going to go golfing? Now he's retired, he is going to go golfing.
I mean, he can. I mean, isn't that what all retirees do? Once you're retired, aren't you supposed to move to Florida and play golf the rest of your life? Get a condo in Marco Island with a nice pool in your backyard or something like that.
I mean, you paint that picture very well. I need to retire, I think.
I know. But yes, I'm going down to Florida. I'm very excited. So I will.
To an island?
Florida's on my mind. No, not an island.
To golf?
I wish. My girlfriend would kill me.
Okay.
So I will not be playing golf. I wish. I will take the public golf courses in Milwaukee when I get them.
What are you going to Florida for?
Dude, I gotta go get I'm going to Ollivanders. Gonna get my Harry Potter wand.
Nice.
And gonna go cast some spells around the wizarding world of Harry Potter. And so we'll be in Universal for 3 days, and then we're going down to Venice, which is on the Gulf side of Florida, and we will enjoy some beautiful weather down there.
Well, that's a good excuse to leave, I guess.
I'm going to enjoy a couple gin and tonics on the beach. And Baxter's making the rowing motion because he thinks that Venice, Florida is the same as Venice, which is not the case. He's throwing stuff. All right, anyways. Let's see. For those of you who have seen The Blind Side, one of my favorite sports movies of all time, the beloved teddy bear of Michael Orr is in the news for something not so teddy bear-like. Michael Orr apparently assaults an Uber driver. I don't know if you heard about this. Not sure where this is going to go or what's going to happen, but I'm sure there will be some repercussions, possibly a fine.
I'm sure Sandra Bullock is not happy.
She's probably not happy. Yes. So hopefully this all gets worked out and we can just put that behind us.
Yeah.
So, it's always tough when you get a recognizable sports figure who you not just enjoy, but you like their presence. They have a clean slate, much like Tiger Woods did before 14 mistresses came out and asked for money. So, I mean, Tiger Woods was
That'll do you in.
Yeah, he was this clean, just everybody loved Tiger. Everybody rooted for Tiger. And then when this came out, the first mistress came out, and we were all like, come on.
Right.
Just some girl asking for money. 14 mistresses later, you're like, holy cow. Tiger, keep it in your pants. You know what I mean? So hopefully we can figure this out and get past it. And it seems like in sports, we talked about before the show, it seems like in sports that happens regularly. You can do things in sports that people can just say, and
as
they
long
move
as you
past
perform.
it. Ezekiel Elliott, grab the boob. So what? What are you going to do? I'm Ezekiel Elliott.
Yeah, exactly. As long as you perform. I mean, we're always looking for guys to be role models, but in reality, they're human, and we just want them to play football.
Yes, exactly. We all make mistakes, whether we mean to do them or not. Does not matter. So, all right. Apparently, I got to pull this up really quick. The Patriots are trademarking a phrase from the Super Bowl. I don't know if you heard this, but they're trying to patent a phrase from the Super Bowl. 2 new phrases for 2017. Let me pull them up right here. They trademark "no days off" and blitz for 6 prior to their 2017 campaign. So,
I always hate when teams or people try to trademark a phrase.
Like, why? What do you – I mean, they're patenting it. Like,
yeah,
what's the point? Just put it on your clothes and call it a day.
Yeah, put it on a T-shirt and move on. I mean –
it's going to have your logo on it. It's going to have the NFL logo on it. Like, it's not like people are going to go make T-shirts. Well, they probably will. Even if you trademark it, they will still make T-shirts.
Half the time, these are like team circulated T-shirts, and they don't go out to the public anyway. So you're not making money off of them anyway. So what do you care?
Exactly. It's a total Patriots move. God. Okay, now that we're done talking about the Patriots,
we got to get them in at least once a show.
I do. Yes. Well, for those of you who are somewhat familiar with any of the shows on the network here, I despise the New England Patriots. I found out yesterday that one of my close friends from college is a Patriots fan.
Okay.
And I didn't know them very well, but I knew them well enough. And when I saw them wearing a Patriots beanie yesterday on Facebook, I was like, excuse me?
Did it take like every questionable decision he's made and you're like,
yeah,
now it makes sense?
I'm like, wow, I don't know if we can, I mean, we were barely friends, but I don't know if we can be friends at all anymore. It's amazing. Just ridiculous. So, but here's the deal with New England Patriots fans. I can't hate on them too much just because they're fair weather. Crickets, nothing.
I mean, you tried.
I tried. I did try. Good morning to everybody watching out there. Of course, it is a beautiful Tuesday here in Milwaukee, Wisconsin. It's raining outside.
Hence why you're leaving for Florida.
I'm ready to get out of here. Get out of Dodge. Yes, so let's dive into the NFC East here and break down the pros and cons of each team and who we think will surprise some people. First, you had a particular team you wanted to start with.
Yeah, why don't we start with the Cowboys? 13-3, win the division. They look to bring back a good amount of players. I mean, you lose Tony Romo, who's retired, but you re-sign Jason Witten, re-sign Darren McFadden. That doesn't necessarily matter as much, but I think that's the team that probably is going to repeat in that division.
How important is Darren McFadden when it comes to depth behind Ezekiel Elliott? Because if Zeke goes down, that puts a lot of pressure on Dak and Dez.
Yeah, I mean, you definitely have to have a viable running back because it is no longer generally a one running back league anymore.
Right.
So it is definitely a big bring back for them. But assuming that Zeke doesn't get hurt, he's going to play a marginal role.
Right. I mean, to have Zeke and Dak running that offense, and then, of course, you got Dez Bryant there, who is a proven veteran. But to know that you have Dak Prescott and Ezekiel Elliott behind your offense for the next 10 years or so, the Cowboys are in for some good years ahead for sure. And it's safe to say that the years ahead will be better than the Romo years behind us.
I mean, that's the hope. I mean, as long as Dak can stay healthy.
Yes.
He's shown there is always the sophomore slump and all that. I mean, they've got two guys that potentially could go through a sophomore slump.
Right.
Two of your bigger players, but
talk about a lucky draft too. I mean, picking up Dak Prescott and Ezekiel Elliott, two phenomenal players. But
Zeke was, if you can say, a sure thing. Zeke was the sure thing.
Yeah.
I think Dak was kind of the surprise. He wasn't a bum at Mississippi State, right?
I believe so.
Yeah,
yes.
he it's not like he was
coming out of Bama or LSU or Ohio State.
But he's a bigger guy, relatively mobile, and I think it was like for him it was mostly leadership, and that was the tough part was for that team to trust him to step into that role
and right away too.
Right.
Yeah, and then thrive on that. I'm sure people expected him to just come in and just fill the void momentarily while Tony Romo was out, but to completely take the job and basically end Tony Romo's career, I don't think anybody saw that coming. But,
no.
3,600 yards passing, 23 touchdowns, and 4 interceptions. That's a pretty good touchdown-interception ratio right there for Dak Prescott. And like you said, there is a possibility for a sophomore slump. We see that in many sports, but I wouldn't be surprised if you see these numbers improve in year 2. So
yeah, and the thing for him, too, is that he's not put in a position. I mean, you see 23 touchdowns, a good amount of touchdowns to 4 interceptions, like you said, a really good ratio. But he's not put in the situation where he has to just throw.
Right.
It's a lot of Zeke pounding the ball, and then I guess you'd call it opportunistic throwing.
High percentage,
Yes.
high percentage passing. Yeah,
and that takes, being a rookie, that takes a lot of that off of his shoulder, and not to mention he's got a pretty good line.
Yes, I mean that's the thing. Whenever you have a young quarterback or a young running back, the offensive line is so important. And I always look back at Indianapolis when Andrew Luck came into the league. I mean, even right now, still their line is awful.
Right.
And for a guy like Andrew Luck, who could be considered one of the top-tier quarterbacks in the league, even for a guy like that, it's not easy to play the game when you have an offensive line that can't support you. So,
and that's where you got to wonder, like a guy like you said, Andrew Luck or Dak Prescott. It matters so much where you're drafted, and you're seeing like the fact that Dak was drafted later falls into a better situation. He definitely wasn't expected to start right away.
No.
But that's what happened. And he's in the best situation for him. You got basically a running team with a premier wide receiver in Dez Bryant, a premier tight end still in Jason Witten.
These are guys who can all help your offense.
You basically just have to get the ball where it needs to go. You don't have to necessarily shoulder all that pressure.
Right. Now, looking at Ezekiel Elliott with 322 carries, 1,600 yards. 1,600 yards is insane for a rookie running back, averaging 5.1 yards per carry and 15 touchdowns. I mean, looking at both of these stat lines, these guys are already putting themselves in the top tier in both positions in the league as rookies. So do we see a massive step forward here in year 2 with these guys? Can they get over the hump and win a couple playoff games this year?
I mean, as far as stats, I don't know that you can expect them to step forward. I mean, they did so much in their first years that to expect better is it'd be crazy. But that being said, they know now they've played in a playoff game. They've lost a playoff game. They've been sent home. They know now what it feels like, and of course now they know the length of the season, the toll it takes on your body, and probably have a better idea of when to rest, when to go full. So I mean, as far as leadership, Dak has got another year under his belt. He's definitely got the trust of that team. So as far as I hate to say it. I hate the Cowboys, but
I do too, believe me.
I do see them doing better.
I do as well, and
I don't like it, but
I love watching young players break out into the league, and it'll be exciting to watch them in year 2. I got this excited when Derek Carr came out. I mean, even with some of the other young quarterbacks around the league. So, and then this year maybe we'll see Deshaun Watson step in and be the Dak Prescott of 2017, 2018. So we'll look forward to that. Let's move on to our next team here. Not much going on down here, but let's try and break it down as much as we can. The Washington Redskins making a couple of transactions, but we're not really sure what to do with Kirk Cousins down here. I mean, I've been confused about it, and their running back core has flipped and flopped and been all over last year. So you got Fat Rob at running back, and their number one wide receiver is Pierre Garçon. So none of these names are really guys who I'm looking to draft in my fantasy league at all.
You're right.
I don't know what to expect this year. And Kirk Cousins just wants to get out of Washington as far as I'm concerned.
As far as the Redskins, I mean, they should probably just sign Cousins. But what they're doing is basically putting him in a position that it's a contract year every year. So
every single year.
So you can expect the Kirk Cousins best. So as far as their quarterback this year, I don't think they have to worry about it because, again, his franchise tag, it's another contract year for him. But Pierre Garçon, you have Deshaun Jackson. Receiving core is okay. The running backs, like you said, Robert Kelly, okay.
I mean, I'm just surprised. I'm looking at their draft right now. Jonathan Allen, Ryan Anderson, and Fabian Morrow, all defensive players. I'm surprised they didn't go offense at all in the first couple rounds here.
Right. And, I mean, you look at their defense, Josh Norman, they draft another corner. Ryan Kerrigan,
they draft another
Mason Foster,
linebacker.
they draft another linebacker. So it's not like it seems all to be depth moves.
Yeah. Yeah. And depth can ultimately win you a championship, but I'd say depth behind guys like Dak Prescott and Ezekiel Elliott's going to help you win a championship, not Rob Kelly and Kirk Cousins. So we'll see.
But, they brought back Chris Thompson, who's another, one of those scat backs, a nice receiving back. If you have a PPR, he's decent in fantasy. But if you don't, then
stay away from him. The two players to watch here for the Washington Redskins, of course, we have to look at Kirk Cousins because he is ultimately in another contract year, and then Josh Norman as well with 2 forced fumbles, 3 interceptions, and 19 defended passes. So Kirk Cousins' stat line here, 25 touchdowns, 12 interceptions, a little different than Dak Prescott.
Yeah, a little bit, a little bit. But, it's only a couple more interceptions. I mean,
for a guy who's been in the league for as long as Kirk Cousins has, though, not that he's towards the end of his career at all, but the fact that, Washington doesn't know if they want to keep him. Kirk Cousins doesn't want to be there. He's already been vocal about it.
How could you want to be there?
You couldn't.
He's done everything that he could possibly do for that team, and they refuse to commit to him. So, from his standpoint, no, I don't want to be there.
It's frustrating.
Yeah.
Absolutely it is.
No one wants to be where they're not wanted.
Where could Kirk Cousins go? If he says, week 8 and the Redskins are out of the playoff race, he says week 8, trade me now. Who could Kirk Cousins go to, do you think?
Well, but that's the thing with the franchise tag.
You can't.
Why? Unless you're trying to dump a contract, why would you take on a quarterback?
An $18 million franchise tag or whatever it is? Yeah.
That may not sign with you.
Right.
Because if you're trading for him, I'm assuming you want it.
Right.
But you're not guaranteed any amount of years with him, so you might as well just wait till the end of the year, because if you're trading for him, you're probably in the dumpster too.
Yeah, you're probably better off waiting till the off season and then
unless you're a playoff team who lost their quarterback.
That is an interesting
That's really would be the only situation that you would really trade for him.
So Dak Prescott goes down. Dak Prescott goes down. The Cowboys need a quarterback. Do they trade for Kirk Cousins?
Look, if Dak Prescott goes down, we know who's coming back.
Tony Romo. Oh, my God. That's why he didn't sign the retirement
walk right
papers.
Out of the booth and put a helmet on.
Of course. Unbelievable.
Jerry's probably got it pressed and ready for him.
Back says Cowboys should likely make the NFC Championship game this season. Defense needs to step up just a bit more. That's a good point. The Cowboys defense should step up a little bit more. I think the defense is part of the reason why they didn't make it further than they did in the playoffs. But ultimately, I'm not worried about the Cowboys.
Who'd they lose to?
Is that a real question?
Sorry, I had to get mine in.
The Green Bay Packers.
They lost to Jared Cook.
And then the Packers got blown out.
We don't talk about that.
All right. Speaking of flying birds, let's move on to our next team here in the NFC East, the Philadelphia Eagles. Young quarterback Carson Wentz over there. Let's take a look at their offensive defense and some of the transactions that they made so far in the offseason. Anything jumping out off the page at you right now, James?
Well, it looks like they're trying to bring Carson Wentz more and more help. You sign Torrey Smith, you sign Alshon Jeffrey, so to go along with Jordan Matthews, Green Beckham. That's potentially a pretty good receiving core. Carson Wentz started really hot and then cooled down and fell off the face of the earth, basically.
Does he come back? Can we see a comeback from Carson Wentz? I think he's still a franchise quarterback, at least for the Philadelphia Eagles.
Yeah, I hope so. It's like you said, he is probably their franchise quarterback. He's a rookie quarterback, he was a rookie quarterback. That's what you get with a rookie quarterback. You can't expect him to keep up that pace that he was on. Especially they're not that good. So
your number one running back is basically Darren Sproles right now, and I love Darren Sproles. I've always loved Darren Sproles.
Love him, but you can't. He's not your number one back.
No, he's not. But he's my number 3 running back in my fantasy team. I'm always the guy that drafts Darren Sproles because he's always like a plug and play kind of guy for me. So if I know that the Opposing defense has given up a lot of receiving yards to running backs. I'm like, there's nobody else I'd rather have than Darren Sproles. I'm going to put him in that week. And more often than not,
he's also the guy that has the potential to have 100 on the ground, 70 through the air,
he can break
and
out.
A punt return.
He can break out. Yeah, that's right. Yeah, he's getting punt return yards too. So, what do we think here from the Philadelphia Eagles overall? I mean, what's your overall?
I think their
consensus here?
Their offense has to take a step forward. I mean,
Carson Wentz needs to take a step forward,
right? And adding Alshon Jeffrey is going to help that a lot. He's a big receiver. I guess more of a possession receiver than a speedster, but a big guy, a reliable guy. I was surprised to see, one, him leave Chicago, and two, just to sign the 1-year deal.
Yeah, Alshon Jeffrey, of course, 52 receptions with Chicago, 821 yards, 2 touchdowns. You're looking at the other number 1 receiver over here in Jordan Matthews, another guy that I like. Right. I don't know why I drafted so many Philadelphia Eagles players in my fantasy league. But
because you assume they're going to be losing, so they have to just throw the ball.
Yes, Jordan Matthews, 3 touchdowns, 73 receptions, 804 yards. Can we rely on these 2 players? Are they enough for Carson Wentz and the Philadelphia Eagles?
Well, I think the addition of Torrey Smith is going to help that. I mean, he's a veteran receiver, kind of been around the league a little bit, but understands everywhere he seems to go, he seems to make an impact. Mm-hmm. I mean, whether it was Baltimore or the Niners, I mean, he seems to be in the mix wherever he goes. And, it's a 3-year deal, so clearly they want to utilize him. So that should help Carson Wentz a lot.
I mean, I love the idea, like I said, as always, of young quarterbacks. So I hope that Carson Wentz does take a step forward because this is really ultimately an exciting division in the NFL when you look at the Giants.
Right. And it's one of your more iconic divisions as well.
It is. There's a lot of history there especially with the Giants and the Cowboys, America's team, Quick on Facebook, Zach Martin says, Bucks, how will O.J. Howard help us? Will he become a main target early? I hoped that the Bills would have drafted O.J. Howard. I'm not mad that they didn't. O.J. Howard is a fantastic player, and he will become a part of the Buccaneers offense immediately. Yeah. I mean, you got guys down there who are slinging the ball. There's a lot of good players of the Buccaneers organization, so I think he can get roped in immediately with not with a lot of pressure either. So I like the idea of O.J. Howard being with the Buccaneers. Any thoughts on O.J. Howard?
I mean, yeah, Jameis Winston has been improving. I think that's a good situation for them. We'll see what they do at the running back situation, but they've got a couple, or at least one good receiver. So adding a big target should be a perfect situation for him. They started with Safarian Jenkins last year, had to get rid of him for whatever reason, off the field stuff or whatever, but that's kind of the spot that needs to be filled, is that tight end situation. So, I think he'll be hopefully useful for that offense. Another up and coming team, one of those teams that seem to be in the dumps for so long, but has started to see some of their young picks start to make an impact.
With Mike Evans, Jameis Winston, and now O.J. Howard down there, O.J. Howard can play both sides too, in the sense where he can block and keep the pocket open for Jameis Winston, and then he can also run out and catch a couple passes too. So to add another passing threat, he is
6'6", 240. I mean, it's.
So we'll give it to O.J. Howard. I'm happy for the Bucks. Maybe we'll do that division next week.
Yeah,
we'll see. Let's move on to our next team here in the NFC East. Another storied franchise, the New York Giants. Yes. This team puzzles me at times, I will say that. Let me just say I'm glad I'm not a New York Giants fan.
Right.
I'm glad, and no offense to anyone out there that is, I'm glad I am not. For the sole reason that you never know what the H you're going to get from Eli Manning. And, of course, the head case of Odell Beckham Jr. So this team tends to find its way into the headlines often, of course, with Odell Beckham Jr. making phenomenal catches and then crying on the sidelines because of a well-defended pass. What do you think about this, though? Brandon Marshall, basically just moving to the locker room
just
next door in the Meadowlands.
changing colors,
Yeah,
that's
changing colors. Signing a 2-year contract with the Giants, and then Jason Pierre-Paul, 4-year contract. And the Giants releasing Victor Cruz, which was interesting to me because he had been with the Giants for so long, and I love the idea of Victor Cruz. I've always liked Victor Cruz.
That's another guy that, you know, the injuries shortened his stay in New York, and that's a sad one because you love the little guy who, you know, brings the explosion to the offense. And of course, you love the salsa dancing, but one of my favorite touchdown dances. But yeah, this receiving core now with Odell Beckham Jr. and Brandon Marshall is either going to be amazing or it's going to be two head cases who end up exploding on each other.
Odell Beckham Jr. came out of the draft the same year as Mike Evans and Sammy Watkins. Talk about a phenomenal year for receivers. The Bills probably could have stayed pat and or stayed where they were at 9 and drafted either Odell Beckham, Mike Evans, or Sammy Watkins, whichever one was still there. But ultimately, they decided to go up and grab Sammy. I'll tell you right now, Odell Beckham Jr. is a phenomenal player, but I'm glad he does not play for my team, for the team that I root for. He is frustrating to watch. He's annoying, and he's good. He knows it. He's like that kid in gym class who was so good. He was just better than everybody else, and he needed to let everybody know that he was better than everybody else. Not humble at all. Not a single piece of humble mind at all with this player. So. But good for the Giants, and of course, he's exciting to watch.
He's definitely a me player.
He's probably the only reason why Eli Manning is still in the league.
yeah, that catch.
Eli Manning, real quick, 26 touchdowns, 16 interceptions. It's safe to say he may be regressing right now. And not that he was ever outstanding by any means, but he does have 2 Super Bowl rings. Where do we see the Giants falling this year?
I mean, Eli Manning is Eli Manning. This is what you're going to get from him year in and year out. I mean, you know, give or take a couple touchdowns, give or take a couple interceptions. He's basically – you're going to have this consistency. The thing about Eli Manning is he seems to play well when it counts. It's as long as you can make it through the year with, you know, that look on his face.
Mm-hmm. Yep.
But I think the Giants are probably the only ones in this division that challenge the Cowboys. I don't necessarily think they can pull it out, but
okay. While we're talking about it, then before we look at some of the key games this year within the division, let's break down our pick for our picks for the NFC East this year. How do you think the NFC East will ultimately lay out?
I think it's going to be very similar to last year. I mean, it's going to be Dallas on top, New York right behind them, and then you can pick one between the Redskins and
the Eagles.
They're not gonna make a difference.
I think the Eagles have potential to step up, but I don't think they are in a position to take away from the Giants, and I don't think the Giants will ultimately be good enough to dethrone the Dallas Cowboys.
As a team, I think the Eagles are in a better situation. I mean, the turmoil in Washington is not going to stop until the Kirk Cousins saga either ends or they extend them.
So it's safe to say the games we are most interested in right now are the games between the Giants and the Cowboys. I don't think the Giants are going to run away with the division, so these games are key. And coincidentally enough, we see in Week 1 here in the NFC East within the division, the Giants play the Cowboys right away, and the Eagles will play the Redskins. So who comes out in that game? I mean, because that's going to be important when you're looking at the final standings of the division. So is it safe to say you can give this one to Dallas in Week 1?
I think at this point you almost got to, you know, kind of take the cop out and say the home teams are going to win, and then we'll kind of figure it out from there. One of them is obviously going to steal a game, and I think if anyone's going to do it, it's going to be Dallas. But that essentially means that they're going to sweep the Giants.
Yeah, I think. I mean, it's going to be the division's going to be won or lost in Week 14 when Dallas visits the Giants. So, say Dallas wins in Week 1, loses in Week 14. That makes Week 17 very important for both of these teams. Dallas in Philadelphia and Washington in the Giants. And maybe it's even more so important for the Cowboys with the Redskins visiting the Giants and Dallas playing a tough Philadelphia organization in Philly. So,
and the thing about it too, though, is that realistically, in Week 17, Washington and Philly won't be playing for anything either.
Bryce says Dallas, Washington, Giants, Eagles as his picks. Thank you for sending in your picks. Dallas, Giants, Eagles, Redskins for backs. And then Adam says we could use some salsa in Buffalo, I'm sure referring to Odell. So
Victor Cruz.
I'm gonna pass on the salsa, so no thanks for that. Let's see here. Anything else jumping out at you here on the schedule in regards to the NFC East?
No, I mean one of those games in Philly is probably going to matter just because Philadelphia is a tougher place to play. But it's really going to depend on Philly and Washington where they are at the halfway point of the season. I mean, I don't see Philly making any major changes, so it's really about Washington. It's like you said, if a quarterback goes down and someone wants Kirk Cousins, then obviously that changes everything.
Well, I mean, I think it's safe to say we have our picks for the NFC East. The Cowboys being out on top, the Giants close behind. It's going to be fun to watch those teams battle it out this year, so pay attention to Week 1 and Week 14 between these two teams. And then, of course, you can flip a coin to see who takes the third and the fourth spot between the Redskins and the Eagles. Any closing thoughts for you today, James, on the NFC East? Or the football world in general, for that matter?
I'm happy that we're done talking about the Cowboys.
So am I. Oh, my gosh.
If I have to praise them anymore.
I'm dreading the day we talk about the AFC East, believe me. Okay. For James Stewart, he's at JStew, I believe.
At JStew Jr.
At JStew Jr. I'm at Banner Turk. We will be back next week.
Yep.
Hopefully, fingers crossed.
If
stay
you make
tuned.
it back from Florida.
If I make it back from Florida, all right.
Watch out for the Gators.
Yes, fingers crossed. I might just stay down there.
I mean,
maybe I'll just stay.
I won't blame you.
Why not? the weather's nice. Yes, of course, stay tuned at 11 Central. I will be back on halftime with Baxter Colburn. And then, of course, there's much more programming for the day and the week. I'm Tanner Burke. He's James Stewart. Thank you for tuning in to the Pick 6. Next week, we will focus on another division. I don't think we have one picked just yet, but
no, we'll have to go through and figure out who
else is exciting to talk about.
No, we'll have to figure out who we hate so we can get it over with.
Get it over with. All right. Until next time, I'm Tanner Burke. He's James Stewart. Thank you for watching the Pick 6. Stay tuned for halftime in just a little bit.